gonna close things off with Aquaman, boy. So before we get into Atlantis, the world of Aquaman and all that stuff, right? We gotta talk about the DCEU. How they started off strong-ish with Man of Steel. Well, sorry, not strong-ish. Promising, I would say, with Man of Steel. We both defend this movie. And then, for some odd reason, they just dropped BVS, Dawn of Justice, which is your worst movie pick of 2016. They just made they just made so much bad decisions in that it just boggles the mind. Just all the bad creative decisions that they make with this show, boy. But even worse is the decision the following year. Instead of, we had the Wonder Woman, of course, right? But instead of giving us Aquaman and let's just say a Man of Steel 2 and a Batman movie, in this case, like a solo movie with Ben Affleck, no, they just say, we're just going to do Justice League one time, Dread. We're going to bring in Aquaman into this. We're going to bring in Cyborg into this. We're going to bring back Superman into this. We're going to bring Flash into this. He had a little cameo in Suicide Squad, which made no sense. He had a cameo in BVS, which made way more little sense than anything else. You know what I mean? But let me just jump the gun, basically. That's my point that I want to get at before we get to Aquaman here. How they just literally had to jump the gun, literally, with this super team movie, right? Which is like, when you look back at it, I mean, I think I think the score I gave it was a 2.5 out of 5, right? Or it could be a 3. But just basically, if you want to see it, right? Or it was it's within that category there. But for me, it was just like, y'all could have just relaxed, take a breather, take all your time, flesh out the DCU a little bit more. I know Marvel do their thing. I know they're scared because Infinity War coming up. But oh gosh, just kick back, relax, check. People love DC. People love the characters. We fuck with DC, don't get tired.
I was making that joke. As I was making, it's not really a joke, but it's just every time I try to talk about these movies, I can't help but think of Dwayne McDuffie and what could have been. Dwayne McDuffie was still alive. Imagine if he was the showrunner to this stuff in the same way Kevin Feige was for what Kevin Feige is for the MCU. What we could have got, how amazing that would have been, because his storytelling and how they do it is, to me, top tier DC material. I still consider the Cadmus arc and stuff like, what do you call it, boy, Divided We Fall and these kind of things so high in terms of what,
especially Divided We Fall. Love that.
It's what you're supposed to be doing with this material now, and it's utterly shocking how these people just can't borrow from that and understand this material. It's just so shocking. And as I always keep asking the question, where is Alan Burnett in all of this now? Where is Alan Burnett? Why does he can't, make this work? Is Zack Snyder's at the root of the problem? Apparently, I know the show, maybe David Goyer, it have a big discrepancy between, the TV people and the movie people. And, again, much like Michael Bay, it says, well, I'm the boss because I make movies, so fuck all here. We gotta do your own thing, and it don't matter if we burn it to the ground, we better than them anyway. And that's basically with Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Again, Man of Steel was okay. It had some smart, decent moments that, again, Man of Steel is a movie you could have done some little fixing uppers and fixing up the edit, a couple reshoots, and it would have worked perfectly fine, in my opinion.
And I would say, I still say they could improve that character, Superman. Don't make him emo, Christ Superman, but make him a little bit more of the Superman that we know, you know what I mean? Just say.
No, you could still do that in the context of the movie, at least for our first film. You have a chance to do our first movie, and giving you a chance to do something. We have no problem here doing this the quote-unquote reboot. That's fine. They just decided to didn't pivot from that in any workable way in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and decided to put all this nonsense in the movie that had nothing to do with anything and made no sense, and it just ended up being a complete disaster. Right? We shouldn't have had any Batman in it anyway. Whatever.
I know, right? Yeah.
Wonder Woman is exactly what it would have been if you're doing this with a lick of sense. You're doing an intro movie. You tell a story. She's basically Captain America of this world anyway. Do it like that. And I thought we would have gotten this movie, in the case of Aquaman, I thought we could have gotten this before the existence of Justice League. So you set Aquaman up.
Yes.
And you set up a workable template in terms of the storytelling. That's what you could do and tell that story.
Right. But before we get to Aquaman, though, before we get to that, do you think it would have made sense, like now, given the state of comic book movies today, have a origin story movie for like the Flash and Cyborg,
because you don't need. Here's my thing with it. Again, I had my own work. Like I wrote out, again, being the nerd I am, I did a whole workable template of what the DCU should have been in terms of order, right? And in terms of you do Man of Steel 2, Wonder Woman, then Aquaman, then Justice League, and Justice League you introduced the Flash and Cyborg in that movie, right? And the purpose of them is to solve a problem. Now, in my opinion, the first Justice League movie would have been Brainiac. That would have been the big bad, right? He would have been like Ultron, except way more dangerous, and he would have been literally covering the planet with his robots. And everybody had to get involved over the planet. So all of the Aquaman shit that you see in Aquaman, all of them would have been part of that fight, right? Because, it's a whole planet, and, the ocean covering.
Yeah, makes sense. But but then in this case with what we got with Justice League last year, Steppenwolf, one of the most underwhelming supervillains ever put to screen, in my opinion. He was just so boring. Like you had Darkseid, you have all these big characters they could have. Bring in Steppenwolf, okay?
Exactly. But the thing with that kind of movie, with Flash is a side character he's a big DC character, but he's also a kind of everyman character. So you're gonna tell the story in a sense from his perspective, with all this amazing shit going on, even though he is also a really great character. And then you introduce, after Justice League ends, you make Justice League a kind of bookend you make his movie a kind of bookend to what Justice League was, and then you start a story, and then you start the main arc. And I had my own ideas for what I would have done with that. Again, me being an entitled nerd on the internet, that's the kind of shit I do in my spare time, right?
Yeah.
And the mistake they make with these movies is just everything back and forth. Everything is cart before the horse. They decide to put characters before and introduce this. So now with Justice League, you have 3 characters you're introducing to your movie. None of that shit makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? None of that makes sense.
We literally had to stop to show us this new character.
Right.
Flash with his Cyborg. Sorry, Flash with his dad. Cyborg with his dad, and Aquaman with Mira, which you'll get to, and some other stuff. Really, well, not much. Just with him and Mira and some stuff.
Right.
I can't remember.
So it's unfortunate. So again, all of that would have made sense if Aquaman existed before. But then you set up Flash, and you have it be a kind of Flash intro movie, similar to how you do Black Panther in Civil War, right? Where you set up a character, but then you backtrack and backpedal the history of that character after, right? That's what you're supposed to do with that. And again, if anybody with just a lick of sense who understand even the most basic DC, and it's almost as if you had almost 30 years of fucking DCEU to work with, or at least 20 years, I should say, of a whole team of people knowing what they're doing, but yet for some reason they just decide to dump that and make their own thing, and they fuck it up. And again, let us compare Zack Snyder to Michael Bay for a second. At least with Michael Bay, he could at least backpedal on, in my opinion, what I consider a very hacky argument. In my opinion, a very hacky argument is to fall back on the box office.
Yeah,
right?
my movie's still making money. Fuck you, right?
They can't say that for Batman v Superman and Justice League. They could even say that. So it's like, well, where's all your point? What is all your point? And they had to learn the hard way that the only thing that is listened to is money. And at the end of the day, Justice League failed. Batman v Superman, in my opinion, is a letdown and a disappointment. Man of Steel, I expected to not do all that well because of the different approach, but I expected, you're building a momentum to something, to a second film, and you make it work. And it's just really shocking how they could not get this stuff out of the ground. And I'm going to talk about Suicide Squad because I was just like, whatever. Like,
oh Lord, let's not even bring up Suicide Squad, right. Please.
Yeah, with this film now, you get the feeling that they just do a kind of soft rebootish kind of something, because they just literally contradict a bunch of shit from the last movie. Like, it's almost as if Justice League, it's almost as if this shit was supposed to come up before Justice League. Because the way he talking to her as if he knows she. I was like, yeah, but you don't know the Mirror. Yeah, you didn't meet Mirror before. Why is you're talking as if you don't know she?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Nobody asked about it, but then again, I mean, with Justice League, who actually remembers the moment when they met and what they said, right? Like, I had always tried to remember that. Anyway.
Right. And then on top of that, they act as if, well, none of the Justice League members even exist in this universe. Like, well, where's Superman? Where's Wonder Woman? Little things like that you had to think of. In the Marvel movies, they kind of address these things, right? Because, well, the events of these things kind of happening roughly at the same time, and they couldn't really get across to help out the other person. Here's why. No mention, nothing, not even a word. It's like, wow. But look, James Wan decided to make a big, bold action movie, and I just gonna straight up say it. Much like with Justice League, they kind of just give up on the vision, decided to go a different direction, and from my entertainment, trash, but my kind of trash standpoint, it does work. It's a big, loud, obnoxious, I would argue at times, but boisterous, go big or go home movie, and it works, in my opinion. Right? It's trash, and it's really incoherent, but I liked it, and I enjoyed what I saw when I was there in the theaters.
Right. Well, because we went together to see the movie with our friends, I actually agree with you as well, though. This is big. It is loud in every sense of the word. The score, which is done by Robert Gregson Williams, it's just so boisterous and in your face, though. But it fits perfectly with the tone of the story, which is just it's one of those shows like where you call a kitchen sink movie that they just throw everything at you, including kitchen sink. That's how it feels like. It just and what I would actually, well, my perspective on this is that if you like followed like Warner Brothers' right, big budget filmmaking over the past couple of decades, right? This is so right up their alley. This is so Warner Brothers slap a big budget on this movie kind of extravaganza. Like if you've seen, well, maybe not the Matrix movie, maybe not the first one, but if you've seen Reloaded, Revolutions, if you've seen Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, if you've seen from last year King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, like that third act alone, you know what I mean? It's just big and in your face. To me, like what I wrote on Facebook, like this is how Warner Brothers spends $200 million approximately on a big budget superhero movie. This is exactly how they do it. So it's not to me that I didn't come out of it like shocked or, oh my God, how could they do this? It's just like, but this is Warner Brothers, though. This is the shit that they've been doing for years. But in this case, it's just like, you know what? This is Aquaman. We going big or we going home. And for some people, like initially, I didn't want to see any reviews for it, right? But at first, I was like, okay, why people like that Disney movie, but laughing at it and seeing it corny, it's stupid, it's dumb. And then when I was watching the film, I was like, okay, now I see why. Now I see why. It's silly. It's admittedly silly, but it's self-aware. And that is what I love about it, right? Some people, some directors could do self-aware good, others not so much. But this is why I'm glad that they picked James Wan, right? Not saying that his repertoire or his filmography is based off of ridiculousness. I mean, he did direct one of the scariest movies I've seen of this decade, hands down, The Conjuring, right? And he did the sequel, which is pretty good. I saw, he did Insidious. I saw that one, kind of forgot about it. Didn't see the second one. But he did one of my personal favorite guilty pleasure movies of this decade, which is Furious 7, right? Love that movie. But love it in the sense that this is just that kind of dumb shit that I could just pop some popcorn, put my brain on the floor and just be like, all right, a car that driving through 1 building and just suspended mid-air and going to the next one. And I always remember seeing the first time I saw it in IMAX. So I was like, all right, this is where James Wan reached. He kind of leave the whole horror shtick and now he's in the big leagues now, you know what I mean? And this movie here, Aquaman, is another big representation of how far he has matured and how he has grown as a director. Because using Michael Bay as a reference here, like, it's not like, oh, I'm just going to have excuses to just have all these big explosions and all this big stuff in your face. There is a level of craft and, creativity and, just solid direction throughout. Now, when it comes down to the fight scenes, which I thought were very well helmed, the fight scenes were badass, they were well shot, well choreographed, by the way, I would say that much. All they could tell, stuntman there, but whatever, they were well done. Set pieces, oh my God, visually, this movie is stunning. It is breathtaking. And once again, the self-awareness of it all, right? So to me, though, how I sum it up is that, this is like a Saturday morning cartoon, but more Japanese anime come to life. Like, this is Dragon Ball Z or some other shonen anime come to life, even right down to the poses that a guy makes when he makes his final blow or a punch or whatever it is. Just how characters just talk loud, like, we will conquer the world and all that kind of stuff. It's really big and in your face. But to me, I don't see any other way this movie could have been, in my opinion. But
What you expect from an Aquaman movie, right? I mean, I didn't expect.
Exactly.
You have to just tell a story. Now, here's one of the problems with the movie. Movie is a mess in terms of story. Because they have too much movie. Like, that 3 or 4 different plots going on in this, and they could have cut a bunch of stuff that thematically don't tie with the other things. Like, I kind of get why they tried, but I would have cut a bunch of things. But whatever, it's fine.
Like for one thing, I honestly, like, I was enjoying the Indiana Jones-esque moments. Yes, even though they had to do the whole Temple of Doom thing with them jumping out of a plane, right? But anyway, I do like the contrast of in the trailer when I saw the desert scene, I was like, well, a desert scene? This is Aquaman. Right. What were you doing with a desert scene? But then I understand the contrast, right? Desert, ocean, right? Right? Yeah. So, yeah, the moment when they went inside the kind of catacombs area, I was like, but this is like straight out of Tomb Raider, Drew. Like legit, you know? And that's not bad, but it just kind of felt like, okay, we had to stop to give us this sort of adventure moment, but there wasn't really much to it. It's just find this thing, no real kind of, obstacle anyway, with the exception of, we have to solve this riddle, and that's it, right? I do like the moment where he gets a new suit and how he does that, having to fight that sort of, I would call it a gigantic octopus, so if it is, maybe it's not just a tentacle creature. Yeah, well, Kraken. Well, if you want to use the whole Greek stuff, yeah, it's a Kraken, right? And ironically enough, I didn't even know it until a friend mentioned to me, Julie Andrews was the voice of that. Like, holy shit. And this was me thinking, it was either this or Mary Poppins Returns, right? If you know, Julie Andrews starred in the original Mary Poppins, right? So like, shit, she's in this movie. Okay, cool, whatever. But, the reveal with him with his suit looked really cool. In IMAX, it looks really badass, by the way, right? And you got to see some really badass moments with Jason Momoa as, the new and improved Aquaman, basically. Or I should say Aquaman 1.0, or 2.0, I should say, right? And the subject of Jason Momoa, I thought that his performance was decent. I would say that much. It's not like a standout, Oscar-worthy performance, given the material. But you could tell that this guy was having a blast with this shit. Like, I mean, this is your own movie, Jen. You don't have Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot breathing on your shoulder, although I wouldn't mind Gal Gadot breathing on my shoulder. Just kidding. But yeah, this is his own movie, and he just does well. He just commits to the performance. I love that. Even in moments where he's just, the average everyday man, just with some tats and, that suave attitude that he has, and, quips and whatnot, right? Even right down to when he actually becomes Aquaman himself, you could tell that he's just enjoying every moment that he is on screen. Amber Heard, as Mera, I thought that she was fine as well. Not only did she look fine, but her performance was pretty solid as well too. And I like the dynamic between the two, although I wish that they could have explored it a little bit more instead of trying to go for, eventually they're gonna kiss, right? And yes, they do it, and it looks every bit as over the top and dramatic as they expect it to be. And when that moment happened, I was like, well, of course this had to happen. Of course they had to play it out like that. It's silly, of course.
Yeah, that reminds me of the scene in Man of Steel when Lois and Clark is with all the destruction around them. Like, or they make
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Willem Dafoe. He was fine. He was fine. But I felt that character-wise, because I mean it's Willem Dafoe, right? Right. Outside of Spider-Man, where he played Green Goblin, he is a great actor. But I felt they could have given him a little bit more to do. His dialogue was on the cliche hammy side. Sorry, not hammy. I'll get to hammy in a bit. Was on the cliche side because I was looking at it like, oh well, you're clearly the kind of Shaolin monk. You're the sensei that trains Arthur Curry, which is what he does actually. And I do like how they do the flashback scenes. Really subtle how they do it, although the transition back was kind of clunky in my opinion. Yeah. There was one flashback where you saw Arthur as a teenager. Basically, he had his first hand arm tat, and that kid's performance. I mean, no offense to the kid, but that performance was goddamn horrible, Jen. But it was cringe-worthily horrible, boy. To the point I was just laughing, Jen. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Am I supposed to do this? And you see him real trying to emote real trying to cry. I was like, please cut to the next scene. Please cut to the next scene.
Yeah.
That was what I was saying, right? Dolph Lundgren was also in this too. I did not know he was in this. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't read up the cast list for the movie. My bad, right? Yeah, and you know, it's kind of not surprising because he was in a little movie called Masters of the Universe, right? Which kind of falls in this whole kind of cheesy Saturday morning cartoon vibe, just like this movie and another movie that Movie Bob made reference to, the cult classic from 1980, Flash Gordon, right? Where basically you're trying to reinvent the character and whatnot, make it more contemporary, but you're still keeping the kind of corny cheesiness of the campiness of the source material, you know, so you're kind of playing the best of both worlds. Patrick Wilson, who, by the way, yes, this is the fifth collaboration between him and James Wan. You know, he was in the Conjuring movies, he was in Insidious movies, and here, he plays the bad guy. He plays Marius, aka Ocean Master, which is a threatening, evil name, right? But whatever. He was a character who was hammy in this. Because, yes, he has to be all theatrical and be like, yes, I am the best warrior and I will be the Ocean Master. And together we will rule the surface world and get rid of the surface dwellers. I'm glad that he didn't do the mwahahaha laugh, but he was close in. But even him, you could tell, was having fun. I like that it was a welcome change of pace for him, seeing that, you know, he always plays like these kind of straight characters in like weird situations with, you know, the Insidious and the Conjuring films, right? Nicole Kidman, did not know she was in this as well too. She plays Atlanta, sorry. So she is the Atlantean mother of Arthur, and the father, the human father, who's played by Timura Morrison. Haven't seen him in a movie. Actually, he plays Jango Fett in Star Wars Episode 2. I thought that he was great in this. He was really great. You know, he is believable as this old guy who just so smitten by Nicole Kidman. And I mean, I honestly don't believe him. I'd be smitten. I am smitten by her, right? Still to this day, right? Whatever. But the whole kind of thing with him, and well, early on in the film, because they established the love they had for each other, her having to be more or less be arrested and sent back to Atlantis because, you know, she left and, you know, basically had this kid, basically this human kid. So I like the little angle where it's like, okay, well, you come out, you know, at the edge of the pier by this lighthouse. Okay, you see lighthouse keeper, by the way. You know, just wait for me to come back. I'll return one day. I thought that was pretty nice, right? Although I'll admit it did remind me of Pirates of the Caribbean. You know, with Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley's character, basically. It has that kind of vibe, like, you know, I'll come to meet you one day. Just come out there and I'll be there. That's very Pirates of the Caribbean. And speaking of pirates. Boy, Black Manta, boy. Yes, I do like the setup with his father being this sort of like mercenary. I would call him like a modern pirate, basically, right? But there's the moment where, you know, the last moments with Black Manta, well, before he became Black Manta, sorry, him and his dad was so borderline cliche. I remember both of us was just like, yeah, we were just laughing at it, like how dramatized we were going at it. But as far as the transition to him being Black Manta goes, I thought it was pretty cool. Even though he is kind of like hammy in terms of, yes, I am the bad guy and I must avenge my father. You know what I mean? Although, and we talked about this afterwards, I like how they justify why his helmet is always wide. You know?
Yeah.
I always thought that was just a joke now, like why is this helmet so goddamn wide now? But they established that well in
so the most fans define it as, well, the reason is that because it had to fit his head properly and it's a costume thing. But other cartoons had it where the helmet was small, so it was like whatever. And we always saw the smaller helmets anyway. But in this, they justify it as lasers.
Yeah, exactly. Just a few more things I just want to mention before we get to your last words, right? Like I said, the score was excellent. In terms of just how loud, and boisterous it was. Like it just fit the film perfectly, right? Although, I kind of was wishing that they didn't put this in the movie. I thought they would have put it at the end credits at least, when people would have get up and walk and just not care to hear it. They had to throw in that Pitbull song, by Ocean to Ocean, which is one of the worst songs of 2018. I don't care. It's one of the worst songs of 2018. I hate that song. Why, oh why would Pitbull and his production team and whoever the chick who sings the chorus, Rhea, whoever his name is, why would they butcher Toto's Africa for, boy. Why? Why do this? It was just so annoying. When the song came up, I was like, fuck this song. But
yeah, and it's a real downvote, sir.
you know, yeah. The downvote for this on YouTube is well deserving in my opinion. But I was telling myself this is so James Wan, because I was reminded of in Furious 7 in the Abu Dhabi scene. This is where all the characters dress up in suit and tie, and then you heard you heard Lil Jon's "Turn down for what?" And then they had this quick montage of them just walking into the casino place. That moment when the song comes in, it reminded me of that. But oh my god, the montage for this was so silly, Jed. It's basically Jason Momoa and Amber Heard coming out to the beach, real James Bond, Dr. No style. I was just like shaking my head, like, wow, this is so James Wan, Jed. Like, you have to have the big song, but have it all flashy. Like, this is such a flashy moment. Let's have our characters be flashy, have them come out of the water, sun glistening on his skin and shit, you know what I mean? It's so James Wan. Can remind me a lot of Furious 7. But that awkward musical choice aside, I really did enjoy the action sequences. For the most part, they were really fun, very engaging, really intense, I would say. I was just surprised at how intense those sequences were. Even though, nobody really died human-wise, but still, you got the intensity of it. The characters, you know what I mean? There's lots of characters. Way too much, in my opinion. They try to introduce a lot of characters, a lot of exposition involved, and it's always like, well, this happened way back 2 centuries ago and all that kind of stuff. Lots of moments where the movie kind of stops to give you all this exposition and backstory. And what I do appreciate, what I do like the fact that they really fleshed out the story, it's like you're literally stopping the film to show us this. And the movie done long already, yeah? And there are moments where I'll say, yeah, the movie, you don't really feel the length of it, but when you get into exposition mode, yeah, that's when you feel it. That's when you feel the movie kind of dragged it. But on that though, like I say, the movie just delivered exactly what I expected it to deliver, and so much more. But I honestly did not expect this movie to commit to its absurdity. I have to stress that it really does commit to it, from the visual effects, which by the way were done by Industrial Light and Magic, and it really did come through solidly enough with the visuals. Although I would say, when it comes to showing the main characters swimming or wide shots of them moving about in the ocean, I was kind of like, all right, it kind of tells these characters, but maybe they could have tweaked it to make it look kind of real, but I don't know if they could have done much. I don't know, but well.
The stuff in 3D, I thought it was looking a little dark. I'm not sure if that was a big problem. Like, they didn't really think to 3D properly.
Oh, you mean for like what, interior shots or like what?
Everything. So especially like the big final action sequence, I find stuff was just looking dark.
Oh, you didn't find it was as bright as the colors kind of suggest.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if it's because of the cinema that we're in, but I kind of rule it as, once again, Warner Brothers being Warner Brothers. If you remember the CG orgy that was the third act of Wonder Woman, it does have that kind of like look to it, where you're seeing fiery colors and whatnot. And maybe, in this case, because Atlantis, you see a lot of blues and greens and stuff, but you always have that dark tinge to things, right? So it's always like a shadowy aspect involved, you know what I mean? So I would say it's, as I said, the choice, it's Warner Brothers doing what they always do, right? But yeah, like I say, I was just in shock at how committed they were to just the absurdity of it. This is wild, this is insane, this is just so much in your face, right? I understand why some, snotty, critics will turn their noses and be like, this is a farce. This is not filmmaking. This is just CG and VFX and just insanity with no story. This is a shame, blah. But this is just big budget filmmaking at its wildest, in my opinion. And once again, it comes courtesy of Warner Brothers, who have been doing this thing for years. I'll say this again. They've been doing this thing for years, and this is like the epitome of it, in my opinion. But in no way do I say it's a bad thing. They're just doing what they do best, and for the most part, it works so well with this movie. Ricardo, any last words on the movie before I get to rating?
No, to me, it was just, as I said, DC kind of gave up on the vision for this Zack Snyder, paradigm. And look, we now finding out that the Zack Snyder paradigm is truly dead now. trying to move on, and they effectively just gave us a Super Friends cartoon episode. And even though I would have preferred something being more coherent and logical, or at least quote unquote logical, or at least internally coherent, like how the MCU does their job for the most part quite well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, this was I'm gonna be clear. This was trash, but my kind of trash. It was really incoherent and a mess, and did not count for a bunch of shit. But I kind of didn't care at this point, given the bullshit that we get from before. It's like, well, if you have a choice to make, I prefer this. So whatever, fuck it.
Yeah.
So that is about it. I'm kind of bouncing around with what the score going to be, because it's good in this way but terrible in that way, and whatever. So it'll probably balance off the score I'm going to give. Anyway, where's the score?
Well, for me, I would say this hands down. This is one of my guilty pleasure movies of 2018. This joins Overlord, which I assume was going to be the only movie that in that category. But now, boy, this one deserves to be on that list, right? Because of how absurd, how wild, how batshit crazy and insane it is, without being too insane, of course. I mean, this is not some kind of movie that just makes absolutely no sense. You just watch it because the visuals. The visuals are there. The story is there for the most part. But yeah, the story could have been fleshed out a lot better. It could have been a lot stronger and not really rely on, the overabundance of VFX. But for what it's worth, though, I still would give this I would still give this as a guilty pleasure movie a decent 4 to 5, man. I was going to say light, but I would say a lighter, decent 4 to 5, really, right? I would say this is a movie that deserves to be seen on big screen, right? In theaters,
right,
in 3D, in IMAX if you could, right? If you're willing to wait till it comes out on home media, I personally would actually buy this shit if I could. I would play this on my monitor. I would have my volume up to 11 and just be blasting this shit, Jed. I just shut my brain off and just relish in the in just the absurdity of Warner Brothers' big budget filmmaking, Jen. But yeah, like I said, this is a guilty pleasure, true and true. There's no way me saying that this is a terrible movie at all. And I guess if you're going expecting a strong story, strong characters, and just really establishing why we should care about Aquaman, you will be disappointed by this. But if you just want just a movie that will just stand out amongst the stuff that we've gotten so far with the DCEU, something that will really hold its own, basically. Just on the visuals alone, then yeah, it does work. Right. But I still say go see it if you get a chance.
Right. So yeah, this was pretty much Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim 2.
Pacific Rim 2 for me again, all over again.
Oh Lord! But I actually enjoyed this way more than Pacific Rim 2, boy, because the Pacific Rim, set up so much in terms of the aesthetic, and then the sequel just come and say, nah, well, Del Toro, they make earning Oscars and shit. So let me just go to Saturday morning cartoons and Godzilla, throwbacks and whatnot, and but dumb and make no sense.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's utterly shocking, though. So I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, if you actually like Pacific Rim 2, that's fine, though. But for me, I was just kind of indifferent to it. I remember just like it was what it was, but I really did feel it was a step down from what Del Toro established with the first film. Because with the first film, it was like a labor of love. You could tell the man know the shit, he loved it, he put his heart into it. Maybe not too much, but you could tell he put his creativity into it. And in this new one, it was just like, well, we don't know what to do, how are we going to go forward? So let's just be Power Rangers, right? And that was it. Yeah,
but for me, it was the exact opposite. All the things I wanted in Pacific Rim, I got in Pacific Rim 2, even though it was less filmmaking. It was a shame that, and that's basically what I got from this. I really wish we could have gotten a better coherent narrative from this.
Right.
But it went so bold and so ridiculous with it. I was like, well, it just push all the right buttons. I mean, never have encountered a film that push all the more base buttons in this way, and then all more higher functioning buttons negatively in this way. Because if I were to cater to the higher functioning thing, this movie's terrible. But okay, so the base aspects, I love it. I can imagine a young kid loving this a lot.
Of course, yeah. But I imagine I would imagine non-comic book fans enjoying this too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And look, because of the spectacle, it gets a lot of points for that. But because of the story, it's just a total mess all over the goddamn place. I'd have dropped it some points. So yeah, go see it in IMAX because of the spectacle. But from an actual rating standpoint, I give it a high CC. It's
all right.
Kind of a mess, not total nonsense when you actually started to think about it, but I will admit I did have a ton of fun with it, especially those last couple of shots and the final action sequence. I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it was just complete nonsense. Sadly, it's really a shame that, as I say, where's Alan Burnett and all of this? I'm not angry at this too, but again, much like with Bumblebee, it's a shame that we can get this in the context of a better franchise. Or a better mega franchise, or whatever you want to call these things now, right? Cinematic universe, whatever, right? That's pretty much it.